You know we do, to me, it's fine.
No,
No?
it's just work session.
Okay.
Okay, where are we starting, guys?
3 minutes early, everybody all right starting? Hey, Bob?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're in charge.
Well, what do we got to go off? Where's Carson's papers back?
I'm going from this September,
Okay, go ahead.
February 14, 2018 letter. Received a number of written comments. And the first one is Mr. Bird Carson has gone through it. And the items he said to discuss would be probably the only ones that would be open. Other ones he agreed with or didn't agree with.
So, excuse me, Matt. Before we go to it, can we tell him about the punctuation and stuff?
Yeah, there's a number of typographical errors and things like that. Carson's gonna go through the ordinance and correct them at no charge to the township. So he's agreed to do that.
He told me it'd take him 4 to 5 hours, but he's gonna do it, not charge Township. Okay, what you want me to start now?
Item number 15, where it says scheduled uses tables, he doesn't specifically state which one it pertains to, but I believe it's the one in the R district. His comment was, footnote must include wells for domestic or potable water extraction, manure, and some pesticides may not be applied within 100 feet of most wells.
Wait a minute, where are you at?
What are we doing? Is that yours?
Is this what you were working on?
No, I'm looking at this letter here.
Let me get that.
February 14, that was emailed to Lisa from Carson.
It's on that file. Right back.
I don't even mind do that. We had a girl clean the floor and move a lot of papers.
Is that yours?
Was that 5.51? Yeah.
I'm looking at page 4-6 in the draft ordinance. I think that's what it pertains to. It's item number 15 from the February 14th letter.
You guys. And what is the heading number 601?
Oh, it's in Article 4, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, it's Article 4, page 6. I think that's what it pertains to.
I'm really lost. I'm on Article 4.6, you said.
Page 4-6 at the top right.
Principal permitted residential district.
Yeah, I'm looking at the footnote.
Principal residence shall not be less than 100 feet from the crop line.
It's the same comment, I guess, to RR as well.
Yeah.
We don't have that one.
And then ag zones too. So.
Have Cindy's.
So, but we have that covered under our, well.
There's a state ordinance where that's covered, and I think that ordinance was drafted on what the state regulations are.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be already covered. I'm not necessarily sure that we have to double up on it in the zoning ordinance, but, you know, we'll go over that with Carson.
Oh, we have one of those.
He does. We got one.
You got one?
This one was mine.
Okay, so that one seems to be all right then?
Well, it seems to be already covered elsewhere, because I think there's a specific requirement in Pennsylvania code that addresses well setbacks and separations and things like that,
And we also have a ordinance that the well has to be 100 foot.
which I think was drafted based upon what the state code says.
Okay.
Okay, the next comment that I have in these letters is item number 24, section 8072H and 8073G nuisances.
807.
Mhm.
807G. 807-1G.
8072H and 3G.
2H. Nuisance manure management. The operation of the stable shall not create any nuisance due to odor,
Yes.
noise, dust, or other factors to any neighboring property. Well, you also, that's 8-10 at the top, Bobby. Well, there's already a nutrient management program for that.
What, I'm sorry, but what's the issue? What was the comment, or what was the issue?
That was Mr. Bodeman's comment. I'm just going to, based on what comment, Carson's comments were, or responses where he had discussed, because he wasn't sure how to address it. Comment was nuisances, manure management. Manure management is under the auspices of PADEP. Delete manure management and let two sections address nuisances in a more generic form. Well, 2H, it just says the operation of the stable shall not create any nuisance due to odor, noise, dust, or other factors. That's nuisance regulation in a very general format. I don't know if it's referencing any manure management plan or anything like that.
Can we not let that in and just, that'll start to handle the township, and if there's more problems, then we'll go from there.
Well, I think you should leave it in there because it
Yeah.
regulates what can or can't happen with the operation of the stable. So I think that's
We
probably.
can wrap the static about it, and then it goes to the manure management stuff in the state.
Well, it doesn't even
So hopefully
discuss,
we can hit it early.
in certain respects, it does talk about odor, which is probably the manure. It doesn't, it does mention manure management approval by the township. But I don't know if manure management is under the auspices of DEP or not. So I guess that's what the question was.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And the Conservation District has responsibility for checking here in Columbia County.
Now, why don't you just say, and manure management in accordance with applicable law, get rid of it by the township.
Then don't get the township involved. Unfortunately.
Yeah, because you gotta have a manure management program where you gotta have each field marked and how much you put on and everything.
Three G is the same exact comment, that just pertains to commercial boarding stables, so I think you could address it the same way.
Yep.
Okay, section 824, country inns. This comment there was no information given regarding the access road requirements. All access roads to such establishments should be on the owner's property and have improved travel area wide enough to accommodate two vehicles, one approaching and one leaving the facility. These are commercial operations and should be regulated as such. My opinion is probably country inns are more akin to a bed and breakfast. I'm not sure whether you should have a definition or a separate section in here just for country inns. That's not my call, huh? But you do need to put if you're not going to have a country inn definition in here,
Well, then bed and
then
breakfast,
you need to put a definition of a bed and breakfast in here.
that works.
I've taken a look to see how some other ordinances define bed and breakfast before I came over. I'm looking at Montour Township. They define it as an establishment dwelling or part thereof in which individual rooms are offered for transient occupancy or temporary lodging purposes by the owner or operated for limited periods of time Breakfast may also be provided for overnight guests as part of the lodging fee. Briar Creek Township, I think is very similar. Any single-family dwelling in which more than 3 persons, either individually or as families, are housed or lodged for hire with meals normally included as part of the services rendered, and shall be restricted to transient visitors to the area and shall not be used for long-term occupancy or residency of guests. So
Which one do you think is better?
I don't really have a preference for either. They're both very similar. They're both intended to be short-term occupancy with meals to be provided with them.
Okay,
So,
but one says with 3 people?
Briar Creek Township says any single-family dwelling in which more than 3 persons, either individually or as families, are housed or lodged for hire. So that means 3 or more are renting it out or
What would
rooms or
they, I
whatever.
wonder what they call 2 people, like a couple.
You can set any number that you want in there that's reasonable. I don't know why they picked 3 in there. The other one didn't, I don't believe, had a number of people.
And didn't the one specify breakfast only, the other one specified meals?
The other one said breakfast may also, didn't say breakfast was the only meal provided.
That's what I was gonna ask, if it's a necessity to have breakfast, to be a bed and breakfast.
One of them here said meals normally included, the other one said breakfast may. Didn't say it was limited to breakfast, so it's however the
Let's
township
go
wants
with
to
the
write it.
normally one.
Well, there is no normal, and these are
No,
different.
no, it said normally, meals are normally,
Okay.
For a bed
Okay,
and
you're
breakfast.
talking about
that
Briar
wouldn't
Creek
fly-
Township?
yeah.
Okay.
That wouldn't fly for a country inn.
no,
I think the
we're taking country
I think the
out
suggestion was take country inn out,
and just make bed and breakfast.
because the definition of bed and breakfast said see country inn, so if you don't have a country inn in here, you have to put a definition for bed and breakfast in.
So would we, what, if it says country inn, see definition bed and breakfast?
I think country
So
inn falls
if a
out.
person wanted to run a country inn, they would be required to serve a meal.
I think if the plan is if you take the definition of country inn would come out of the ordinance altogether, and you would just have bed and breakfast.
Right, we won't even have
You wouldn't even have country inn.
Okay.
So are you deciding to make it where meals are to be included?
Or could be
I
included.
think the definition of Briar Creek Township said normally.
How can it be a bed and breakfast if you don't serve breakfast?
I'm just reading the definition
Gary,
here.
My wife and I went to one of those places, we left before breakfast. Now, they may have served breakfast, but we left early.
One said breakfast may also be provided, and the other one said with meals normally included.
Can I,
Food typically is included in those places.
Yeah.
can I just make a comment? In regards to, I understand that we have a lawsuit pending, I understand that, but right now, there's a big influx of Airbnb going on in all the neighborhoods, and I think you guys really should take it into account. You're specifying about this definition, you think that it's not that big of a deal, but it really does. It is a big deal, because Airbnb is pretty much a vacation home where nobody's there, nobody's looking at anything that's going on with the fire codes in the house, nobody's there at all. If you have somebody saying that there's gonna be meals may be provided, or are normally provided, that's saying that there's an innkeeper there. There's somebody there overseeing a normal bed and breakfast. You're not gonna have the Airbnbs coming into the area.
But we don't have a definition for Airbnb.
No,
We have a bed and breakfast.
there's 3 cases in the last 3 years that came out of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania dealing with those Airbnb facilities. And it pretty much held that vacation rental isn't allowed use in a single-family residence, and I think that's where your concerns go.
That's where my concern is.
So I don't know how you regulate that. That's a very new and unique use based upon what Airbnb is
I have
doing.
a nephew and a niece, each own a house that they rent out to the people, and they're having no problem with it. And it's in developments even.
Larry, do you have any comments on that? Anything there that you've worked with or done?
Another big problem right now.
And I can personally attest that we've had significant problems from somebody running out of house as an Airbnb. Significant problems. People showing up to our house, people playing with our children's toys in our yard, knocking on our door at 2 a.m. And I don't have it with me, but I could read to you comments that were found online about the house that I'm specifically talking about that shows that there was significant problems in that house in this township, where they were plugging up the drains, jacking up the heat really high. There was a lot of problems that I think that it should be looked into from a township standpoint, that depending on what this definition is, the Airbnb could be a big potential problem in the future with the township if you don't specify it in the
Would it
ordinance.
be feasible to put a whole separate section in for Airbnb?
I don't think you can define it as Airbnb. Airbnb is a company
It's a
that
company.
does this. Airbnb is a website. I think if you wanted to regulate it at all, I think it's the vacation use of it that you would have to regulate in this ordinance, because when I looked at those 3 cases, the ordinances didn't even regulate really vacation rental of a single-family residence, and that's what was going on here. You had one case that started off on this side, then it went down this way. The person was residing in the house, and all of a sudden it turned into a commercial renter where the owner wasn't residing in the house, but they were just using it for commercial investment, and people were renting it, and they said those were fine too. But they were based upon the particular definitions in those municipalities' ordinances. This is a very new use that's going on, which I think if we're going to try to regulate, we're going to have to talk to Carson about how to do that, because it's really a vacation rental issue that is the problem, or the issue.
Okay.
I think just so you, from my limited understanding of it, the Airbnb can also rent rooms. So just if you're thinking about it, you may need to keep in mind that it may not just be, I own this house that I don't live in, and so I'm renting it out to someone for a vacation home, but it could be, I have a house that has spare rooms, and so I'm renting those spare rooms out to someone through Airbnb to come and spend a night and go on a vacation.
Is this similar to a timeshare then?
No.
No, it's like going
Because they
online.
rent, they're not there and they rent them out.
It's like going online and doing a search for an Airbnb place, and I would list my home on this website. You would go on, you'd find the home, you'd contact Airbnb, say I want to rent it. Airbnb does all of the arrangements and all of the money taking and passing back and forth. But I may not actually be living in that home, or I could be living in that home and just be renting out bedrooms.
I must be old fashioned, my husband would be nuts if he did that.
Thank you, I agree.
The world is a little bit nuts these days, probably.
Now, I have a nephew who lives out by Kalahari. He bought a house in a development, and that's all he does, is rent that house out weekends and during the summer. People go to Kalahari plus.
There's another company actually called Vacation Rental by Owner, which is a similar kind of setup.
I think that's what he's on, and they do, get the people for him and stuff.
The issue was, how do you differentiate it from a single-family residence? Because if the people were just coming in and renting it on a short-term basis, what's the difference between that, if it was a family that was doing it as opposed to a bunch of unrelated people? What if a family wanted to come and do that for a weekend or whatever, versus a normal family living there from the area? That's where the courts looked at that.
Wouldn't that be covered under like a short-term hotel stay or something like that?
That's where they tried to squeeze it in, but the court said no, they found that it was single-family residence.
Is there anything we can do with vacation rental?
I think if we're gonna address that, we're gonna have to address that specifically.
Specifically?
We're gonna have to look
Okay.
at that.
Let Carson work on that, we'll call vacation rental, and that'll take care of the Airbnb?
If you could, by any chance, in my own personal opinion, not have that in the ag district or with rural residential properties. I mean, that's your own discretion, but as a township citizen,
Well,
I'd like to
I
put
would
that out there.
think,
I mean, when we purchased our property, I moved out of a development and I wanted the privacy. I didn't want transients right next door. I wanted to just come out and live next to everybody that I already know and let my kids go out and play and not have to worry about one of these days a person could go off this road, grab my kid and travel back to Oklahoma. You know what I mean, or wherever they're coming from. You don't necessarily know who's staying there. And when you start bringing transients into the area, it's a very scary situation because who knows why they're staying there? I mean, at any point in time they could
but
come
I
and
think in
rob
the
the neighborhood, you just
situation
don't
that
know.
you're talking about, most of the people are just coming in for a event and leaving. They're not, and the ones that are staying there for the event the next morning. And they're not who it would be.
Well, the ones that stayed there when we had significant issues came in from New York for a 21st birthday bash. And so it's not typically just nice, happy families, you know what I mean? I like to know who my neighbors are. I like to know that my children can go outside and play safely. I like to know that, you
I'll
know.
never count on that this time.
I know.
And then how do we differentiate it if somebody wants to rent their house out?
Yeah, they ought to be able to rent it out if they're in Wonder View or if they're in conservation open space, if that's what they wanna do. I don't think we ought to just put it not, be able, we can't do it in the ag area, or can't, I think it ought to be able,
It's got
if
to,
we're gonna put it in, it gotta be in the whole township.
it probably has to be in a separate provision dealing with vacation rentals, because if somebody moves out of the area and they're stuck with their house and they can't sell it, are you gonna prevent them from renting it? Are they gonna
But that would be like a longer term rental, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, you would have to make
Well, what's
it,
the difference? You have somebody you know that you don't know.
you have
But
to
they'd be
make it
coming in and
vacation
living in
rentals under 30 days.
Okay, they're a vacation rental under 30 days.
Because under state law, 30 days or more is a long-term rental, and you can do that by law. Under 30 days, you get into the UCC side of it.
Yeah, because of safety and panic concerns.
Right. It considers it
Exit
crazy.
signs.
The problem becomes on the UCC side, trying to enforce it is, if they get zoning approval, you can't force the UCC side of it. That's where you get into problems.
Yeah, this is a very, very new issue.
Yeah, I mean, I deal in 8 townships, and no one has that in their zoning yet. Vacation rentals.
Because there's 3 cases that, all those cases came out of the Poconos, so that was the issue, but as I recall. So,
Okay, like, thank you that.
all right. Section 1103.1.
I'm gonna start with the sign thing, 1103.1,
1103.1.
which one? A, B, or just the whole thing?
I gotta get there first. 1103.1, it just says, why is a permit required to replace a sign damaged or destroyed by a storm if the original sign was properly permitted or grandfathered?
Oh, if they ripped up the roof or something like that, would it have to be inspected for the repair?
Well, if it was a sign that was there, and it got damaged, you'd be able to replace that sign
I
without
think,
a permit.
right, I think the concern was though, making sure that what replaces it is the same that was what was already there.
That's what, yes.
So, not that it gets
It
20
can't
feet
get
bigger.
bigger or anything like that.
Yeah.
What is saying, erection or re-erection now?
Was it re-erection, reconstruction if it gets damaged?
Because the permit shall be required.
Before the erection
Or re-erection.
Re-erection. And that's, if it gets damaged, like in a storm or gets knocked down,
Well, it says a permit shall be required, but you said he doesn't need a permit to repair?
Not for maintenance, not for repair.
Well, then can't we just scratch out re-erection?
well,
No, I wouldn't scratch
no.
that.
No? Okay.
maintenance and re-erection are 2 different issues. Maintenance is just fixing it, painting it, putting new boards on, whatever you're gonna do. Re-erection is if it gets damaged, totally damaged, destroyed or whatever, you wanna make sure that whatever the person is putting back there replaces what was already there, I think. That's why you want a permit application.
So, what are we doing? Let it alone?
I think, based upon that, I think, Larry, unless I'm wrong, I think you leave it alone, because
Yeah, I
if you're
don't
re-erecting the
see why.
sign, I don't think there's a problem there.
All right. What's your next one then?
So if the sign if the storm destroys Tom's sign and he was to put it back up the same as it was, he needs a permit to put it back up.
Yeah, because the permit application is gonna tell you what Tom wants to put back up there, because who's gonna know if Tom had a 10-foot square sign and he puts a 400 square foot sign or a 30-foot square sign? You wanna regulate what goes in there.
So he has to pay for a permit.
He's gonna have to pay for whatever the application is, sure, because somebody's gotta look at that.
Just like if you fix your driveway and you join, from dirt to macadam, you need a permit to join into the road, so I mean,
Well, you need a driveway access permit, I don't know that you need a
Yeah, no, no.
permit to do the work itself.
Yeah, when we
For
join
paving.
into the,
You need a permit to access
Well, we
the
need-
township road.
What's that?
if we repair a drive, you have a gravel driveway and you wanna pave it, don't they need a permit?
Yes, under our current ordinance.
Yes.
Well, Fisher had asphalt and he rode it away and he repaired it and had to get a permit for it.
I don't ever remember asphalt being.
He did, the ditch was asphalt.
But then he went how much more?
Well, he went back beyond that, he was beyond the right of way on the left, and he had to get a permit for it.
Yes, he did. And that's what he said, that's in our ordinance,
But to
yes.
repair,
You gotta repair a permit though.
Yeah.
it was the same as it was the same as new for us and the same as new
Oh,
for
yeah,
No, repair permits are different.
they are now, but they weren't then.
It cost all $75 2 years ago.
Yeah.
New was $125.
Which one is which
A
now?
new permit,
If we go and put a driveway in, it's $125.
That's right, for a new one.
Right. But if you're repairing and button up to it, $75 for a repair permit. And that's to maintain the swale and keep the water from coming out.
That sounds contrary to what I just heard you talking about 2 minutes ago.
no, it wasn't. If you're repairing it, or joining in, the driveway's already there, Jerry.
That's right.
They were just upgrading it, that's when the repair permit came in.
Yeah.
If you build a house and put a brand new driveway in,
I understand that, Tom.
that's $125. Unless you do it on a state road and they don't charge you near as much. You know that? State road, the state doesn't charge you $25 for a permit.
I think they changed that.
Did they change that?
Yeah, I think they changed it.
Well, it used to be, when I put mine in, it was $25. All right, what else?
1104.1F, that deals with signs, portable and wheeled signs. The comment was, this item is inappropriate as written. It prohibits the sign of one of our main businesses in the township, names our ag services has used for a number of years. The sign is used to advertise different products throughout the year. Why are portable signs not acceptable?
No, wait a minute, where are we at, what number? Portable wheeled signs.
Yep.
These are the same signs that you can buy in like Walmart, Sam's Club?
No, I think there's signs that are,
store.
Yeah.
Arrow.
there's signs that are probably on wheels or whatever. You can move.
Trailers.
Is this pertaining to trailers?
It says prohibited. It's on a prohibited
They're
sign.
not allowed.
They're not allowed at all, right this week, right now, anywhere in the township.
So if it was in the back of your pickup truck, and you parked your pickup truck by the road.
As long as that pickup truck would be legally licensed, I don't see why it wouldn't be. Insurance on it.
Well, now, the other thing is, if you own a tractor trailer and you wanna park it outside along the road, Jerry doesn't advertise his hay, that should be legal, even if it's an old trailer.
If you go down to H, I don't think that's true.
Well, I have this, that mark too. Signs on parked vehicles.
That'd be a wheeled sign, so, under that description.
Yeah.
Well, it says, well, it does say on a public right of way, which is public property or private property. See, I think you ought to be able to do that.
What's the difference between that and a businessman, like, the guys over here,
Yeah.
having a trailer with their signage on the side
Yeah.
that they cart around,
Coming down,
and then it parks in their property at the end of the day?
coming down
I parked
880.
my dump truck out along the road.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yep.
So do we take that out?
You drive up the highway and see them all over.
Yeah.
Big box trucks with,
Yep.
you know,
Don's truck is right along 80, on the way down from Mifflinville.
I think.
It used to be.
You do whatever you want. I think the only concern, or probably the comment with that, was if you have somebody that has a sign in their yard advertising somebody else's business. What if you have a tractor trailer in your yard advertising somebody's business that's a mile away? Usually they're not allowed. But I don't, it's up to the supervisors what you want to do.
I think instead of being flat out prohibited, I think if you want to prohibit it in rural residential areas, that's one thing. But I think in commercial and industrial, that's different. Because otherwise we're telling Denny that he can't have his sign out in front of alongside of his building.
But his sign would already be grandfathered in.
Yeah, that,
And that may be, that's immaterial.
But
There is no such thing as
that's-
grandfathering in the zoning.
but that's
Larry
permanent.
told me.
his sign's
That's not
permanent.
correct.
No, on the trailer, it's the trailer. The one you could go rent one just like it if you wanted to, Bob.
Was it? I thought there was posts to the ground on this
It
trailer.
stabilizes, but it's not post.
I mean, I don't think we should allow in the residential areas.
Pardon?
I don't think we should allow in
I
residential
don't either.
areas.
I think
Other than
residential
that,
area should be
I don't
exempt.
see what would bother.
Then it doesn't say that, 'cause right now they're flat out prohibited.
Yeah, as long as they're, off the parkway and.
So H, we're gonna go with,
It would be,
except in residential,
the F. Would you just not want to have in residential areas?
Not rural residential, residential. Right, Tom?
yeah, that means I can't even, Schulman's roasted sweet corn on the side of my vehicle and park it in my own property that I pay taxes on.
So I guess I personally see a difference between a vehicle
Right. It's,
and a wheeled sign.
as long as it's licensed and insured, I don't think any of that will hold up.
So a licensed trailer with a sign on the back of it would become a vehicle.
But a wheeled sign, I mean, I have a portable sign up there, I put those little plastic letters in.
That's exactly what Denny has there, and according to this, it's
Yeah.
prohibited.
Yeah, but yours is it affixed to the ground or not?
No, it's portable.
So just leave them all in except for residential areas.
Do they don't have one in my, up for my store?
Well, that's village central.
Yeah, they're different.
Is your store residential or is your store?
The village center.
Centers.
No, there's exemptions, farm signs are exempt.
Where's that at?
Right below that, 1104.2, farm signs,
Or exempt, farm signs,
entrance of a farm indicating name of a farm, farm-related information.
yeah, but that's for, farm distinction and, milk shippers and stuff
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
different, that's not the same thing.
I mean, I can't believe people in one review would, a tractor trailer with a sign sitting in front of
Okay,
it.
so can we put it in residential areas? Is that where you want to put it?
You have to
I
put,
mean, take, exempt,
you have to
Except-
designate the zoning district.
yeah.
So if it's the R district, then it's the R district.
Or you can limit the size of the sign.
So, and then, are we done with this one yet?
Yeah, if you want to just have it everywhere else except in the R zone,
Except in our residential area.
that's fine. Well, we have to designate it by zone, so. Okay,
Well, then I got directional instructional signs. I have a problem with that. On-site signs not exceeding 4 feet. Says advertising material of any kind is strictly prohibited on directional and instructional signs.
because they're
So-
they're different types of
Like
signs,
different
that's
types of
why.
signs, yeah. Normally, you never.
What about the people, the realtor people? That has a, it says, covered bridge with an arrow, back a road to a,
But those are normally temporary signs.
Mhm.
what was it
I
down?
mean, once they sell a house, right, they take them off and take them
Yeah.
out.
So you're gonna say realtor signs and auction signs with an arrow is gonna be all right?
Yeah, they're just temporary signs.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with somebody putting that in your yard, advertising their house for sale, or giving directions to their home that they want to have an open house on.
Or to a business, you're saying?
Usually a directional side to a business is not temporary.
Mhm.
Well, now, in our ordinance, didn't you tell somebody that they can put 2 directional signs up?
Our ordinance right now allows it, yes.
So if we put this and it doesn't allow it?
Well, this has a lot more in our ordinance that was written in 92 than we have now. And this is- We're
Okay.
regulating a lot of different signs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we still include our two, directional signs in?
Sure.
See, I mean, I think that would,
What,
well, right now in our old ordinance, we allow two directional signs, like one at each end of a road. Let's say one, Church Road, with an arrow pointing up to a business, Jerry's Hay Sale, or one,
We allow business two directional signs.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Okay.
Now, the other thing, the farm signs on A 1104.2, exempt signs. You can't even put up a 4x8 sheet of plywood, it gotta be less than a 4x8 sheet of plywood. 32 feet should be a 4x8 sheet, and it's 20 feet.
Well,
Is there a reasoning?
yeah, you have to remember, you start running into the state side of it on wind and all that.
Well, see, I don't know,
That's why you try to keep them smaller to stay out of that area.
And a 32-foot square sign advertising like a bicentennial farm is a very big sign. Usually you'll see, they're usually
Yeah.
like that big, 3 by 3 or something.
well, now it says here, you could put up, I guess they could put up more than one, because the combined total can't be more than 60 feet. So you could have 3 20-footers in a row.
Well, because that's less wind resistance.
All right, I can go with that then.
You know what I'm saying? If you put up a billboard, you have to go through all kinds of engineering for wind and
It has to be supported, so it
right
doesn't fall.
structure and all that. So if you keep these below a certain square footage, you stay out of that.
Does the UCC cover signs,
Yes.
Larry? And then the limit there is?
I don't know, they have different stuff in there too for different size signs and type of signs, and yeah, it's pretty extensive in there too.
All right, you got any more, Matt?
I mean,
Just
you really,
not on that part, there's another section.
you really don't want to kill people on engineering.
On that section, I'd like to make a comment back to 1104.1B. You have banners and pennants. The trend today is to go with these banners that have open on them. And you've got other parts of the east there, you'll see them everywhere. And they're starting to show up in this township as well.
1104B,
Yeah.
okay, light strings, banners, pennants, and
Banners,
balloons.
pennants. The trend is to have those banners when a business open, put the banner up that says open on it.
But that's a temporary sign.
Yeah. I got one advertising the coffee I sell that I screw fast to the building.
Well, that's permanent.
That's a permanent sign.
Fixed it.
You take screws out, you can roll up, go home.
There's no problem there with the open sign.
Well, it says a permit shall be required unless a certain type of temporary sign is specifically exempted,
Okay.
which means a permit is required, because they're not exempt. They're prohibited, in fact. You need a permit if you're gonna put one in. If you're gonna banners of your Tom's gonna put banners in front of his store, yes.
It says open. He has to put I got a permit.
Yeah, get a permit, according to this.
So what's the difference between a banner on a pole that sticks off the side of his building that says open and my flagpole on the side of my house that I put seasonal flags on?
Because you're not advertising for a commercial business.
So you're saying I need a permit?
If you were to put banners out like they do on car lot, for example, with pennants on it,
Oh, you mean the strips? with
Right.
the- Yeah,
you would
okay, I can,
have to get a permit to do that.
yeah.
If he wants to hang a banner on the front of his building temporarily, he still needs a permit.
The way
Is
this
that what
is
you're
right now.
saying?
I think you're having a problem with that.
The country store out here puts different signs up at different times.
Everybody does.
Yeah. You know, you get a company that wants to advertise the you're selling their product.
What about a grand opening or?
Yeah.
Or a going out of business sale or
They're temporary.
Mayville Furniture going out of retirement sale? That's a banner.
Banners, if you put a temporary banner up,
But down at the country store, they aren't temporary, Bobby.
right, the sign that's up in the air, you mean? Yeah.
And they've got, what, 3 of them up there right now, I think, 3 different ones on the building?
I don't know.
But they're different businesses, right?
Yeah, there's 2 different ones in there.
Yeah, there's 2 different businesses there.
Probably the reason why they're not allowed is because of the nature of the sign. Banners, pennants, and balloons, they're not very strong, they're gonna rip, they're gonna be gone, or whatever. That's why they're probably not allowed. If you want business signs, it's probably why the ordinance is looking you to go to something more permanent, a fixed sign.
That's what they are, actually, they're fixed signs.
Yeah, they are.
I don't know, I'm just thinking of what I normally see as an open sign, it's a pennant, it goes up there for a couple of weeks and it's gone. That's what that's intended to address.
So why couldn't we just add under it for 30 days of?
A temporary,
Yeah.
temporary,
If you group it under temporary, then you're fine.
I mean, if you have a temporary sign, 30 days is no permit.
Yeah, because right now, it's temporary, it's open-ended, it doesn't tell you.
It is open-ended, yeah.
I'd say, well, it's temporary, it's been up there for a year, but it's temporary.
5
I'm gonna take it down,
years.
I'm gonna take it down after a year.
Or after 5 years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or until the wind blows it down.
So if a new business opens, I would think 30 days is plenty to advertise a temporary sign. I mean, I think that's reasonable.
We change it to temporary?
We'll just add temporary permit for a sign is 30 days max or something.
what, under that section, or is there a different section that deals with that?
No, I would put under that section.
1104.1C.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, if it's there longer than 30 days, it becomes a permanent sign and you would have to have a permit to be there.
It would fall under different rules, yeah.
I'm sure we'll have to look at this next year or so, go back over, see what we have to tweak to make it right. I mean, we're never gonna get it perfect. Things will be changing all the time. So, where else?
The next comment was section 1104.3E.
E.
Yep. That deals with construction of supporting members or braces. That section says what they should be constructed of. And I guess the comment there was, what does properly treated wood mean? And there was a whole explanation in here of various types of preservatives or whatever. And I guess the comment was, is this stuff more regulated by the UCC, Larry? Does UCC say?
I think we should just take it out, let the UCC regulate it.
Okay, so take DL altogether?
Yeah.
We've referenced the UCC several times now. If I recall from my reading of this, we do not in the current zoning ordinance, proposed ordinance, mention that everything must comply with UCC.
Well, here it says, load requirements of uniform construction code, right in that one. In D,
Yeah, the one above it.
Yeah, but I think it's implied because when you want to construct or build anything, you've got to get the building permit. In order to get the building permit, you've got to comply with UCC.
So why not simply make a statement to that effect up front and say that, so people know exactly that?
People are going to know that anyhow when they go for the building permit. They're going to be told that, so.
It doesn't hurt to put it in here so people read it, and it's in black and white.
I got something with H here then. Public right-of-way setbacks.
There should never be anything on that like that.
Yeah.
That's a safety issue.
Yeah.
That's okay if you take out the semicolon. The semicolon right now makes it more generic.
Maintained less than 10 feet from the edge of any public road right of way and not less than 10 feet from the side and rear.
Because as the heading is right now, it's two different items. It's public right of way and the setbacks. Take the semicolon out, it's okay.
Just so it says public right of way setbacks.
Exactly. So setback regulations apply for public right of way only, which is what it's intended, that's not what it says, the way it's written.
Well, it also applies to the side and rear property set lines, that's probably why setbacks was set apart from that. Not just the public right-of-way issue.
But that can be interpreted as being setback for other things as well, and that's not the intent.
No, I don't know if that's the case, but I think setbacks are intended to apply to setbacks from the side and rear property lines, that's why it's set apart separately with the semicolon in there, because that's addressed in the second sentence.
All right? Where else?
So are we gonna take delta and echo out then?
I think so, that's my notes here.
Which one?
E, or I'm sorry, D. I'm sorry, E.
You mean the wire signs, wind pressure and dead load requirements?
Yeah, the UCC regulates all that, so I don't see why we need the zoning.
All right.
Okay, the next comment that I have, where it said discuss, was 1104.9. 1104.9, it deals with freestanding sign landscaping. And the comment was there, as written requirements are unclear, why is a landscaped area of 120 square feet, 10 by 12 or the equivalent considered a minimum? There's no logical justification for this minimum. It's just a number that was come up with. I don't think it's driven by anything. You could have had 20 square feet by the number or 400 square feet by the number.
Freestanding, all freestanding business and residential identification signs shall be placed in a landscaped area. So is that our fire numbers all gotta be in 120-foot square landscaped
I
area?
don't think it has anything to do with fire. I think it's just the way
It says all freestanding business and residential identification signs.
shall be placed in a landscaped area of not less than 4 square feet.
911 sign.
Those 911 signs are out there on a pole.
That's your house number.
Yeah, that's your identification number.
I don't think it applies to that. Freestanding business signs and residential identification signs.
That's a residential identification sign.
Yes.
Well, residential identification sign could also be, this is barn side acres.
Because they're no less than 120 square feet, so as a minimum, you have that 10 by 12 area to put a sign in, regardless of what you put, regardless of what size the sign is.
Can we do something like, it has to be 2 square feet bigger than the sign?
Again, you're getting to picking arbitrary numbers. That was the comment to begin with. Why is it 120 square feet?
Yeah.
I don't know. 10 by 12 is probably the area for landscaping to make it look neat appearance-wise. I don't know. I don't know where the 120 number came from.
Let's have that clarified if we can.
Does that mean that since Dwayne and Rich no longer milk cows and they have still have a dairy sign out there, that they have to have a 120 square feet landscape area around that sign?
I don't think we have to have anything, I think we just need to keep the signs off the right of ways, that's all.
No, there's are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So, you mean take out the landscaping totally?
I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was questioning. I still think that house number signs, somebody wanted to be
But
challenged.
It's not house number signs.
No,
These are
business
120 square feet or whatever. So these are large signs.
Okay, but my farm is a business. So it applies, even though it's not, yeah, we have a house, but it's also a business.
Yeah, if you were to put a new sign there, it would apply.
And, well, what Tom's saying, these 911 signs technically are business identification. They're for emergency, but they're still business identification.
We're gonna take it out.
It's not, okay, that's
I'll
not,
just take the landscaping out.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Landscaping deal, yeah. Anybody that's has any pride in landscape around their sign nicely anyway. Where we at, Matt?
1107.2.
1107.2. The maximum freestanding sign shall be one per lot.
Yeah, I think so. It does not make any sense to have the same maximum number of signs, one for 1 acre, 2 acre, 5 acre, 10 acre lot. That was the comment.
Well, one sign per acre?
What would a freestanding sign be considered? I'm sorry, I just wanted to understand. Like, are you talking for businesses or
This is non-residential use.
non-residential
this
use?
is residential, rural residential.
Residential, rural, ag, or conservation open space.
Everything but village center is covered.
So would that be inclusive of trespassing signs or slow children at play signs?
Were trespassing signs exempt back before? No?
I don't think it was ever an issue.
It was never an issue.
Nobody ever questioned it.
I don't even think the ordinance is even intended to go that far.
Yeah,
I think you're reading way too much into it.
I think chasing something.
Do you want to take it out? Do you want to leave it in?
I guess the comment is this: if you have a 100-acre lot, why should you probably be limited to one sign? If you have a half-acre lot, why should you have one sign? It's a judgment call. But what you don't want to have is 15 different signs on one lot. That's an acre. So
Yeah,
where do you draw the line?
You do have a nuisance clause in this, don't you? You could construe it as a nuisance. If the neighbor has 10 signs within 100 feet, you know.
Well, I'm sure there's some people in Wonderview, if they put up a bunch of signs, the other neighbor would be down quick.
That's right.
Let's see,
Well, I think maybe what we'll do is talk to Carson about that. It's really a judgment call.
yeah,
You know.
And who makes the judgment?
So what's his own officer?
What I'm saying, the judgment call is, are we gonna allow one per lot? You know, is it gonna be one per acre, whatever? That's the judgment call.
I would rather see it one per acre than one per lot. I could put a sign in Mainville, and up by the fire hall, I could put another sign.
Normally what you see is not so much, sometimes you see it both. You see a limitation on the number of signs and the total square footage. Because if you don't have a number of sign limitation on there, you could have a particular lot located in an area that's high visibility that gets inundated with signs that looks unattractive. Like, that's what that's designed to regulate. So the other way you address it is the number of square footage that you could have.
But didn't we have
You
that in
already
an
addressed
earlier
that.
conversation?
You already addressed the size of your
Because
sign.
when we were talking about the size of the sign not being allowed to be the size of a sheet of plywood.
That was for something else, though. This is in specific zones. This is where this particular comment came up.
Then you'll have to address it for size.
So like an example that I can see that, I don't know, for me personally, I don't really find that offensive. There's not necessarily in our township, but In other townships, I've seen like a fruit and vegetable stand. And on that person's property, along their road frontage, but not on the road.
Cucumbers, tomatoes.
Tomatoes,
Great, yeah,
grapes. And I don't really find that offensive, because they're little signs that are about this big, and it's just kind of advertising as you're driving along what they're selling at that particular facility. So, but those are freestanding signs. So if you're limiting them to even 1 per acre, those signs are illegal.
I'll go back to Matt, I'll be limited by square footage.
You could, there is a provision in here that talks about above that area and height, maximum area of wall signs, 24 square feet, window signs, same square footage, freestanding signs, 24 square feet, 24 square feet and 8 feet respectively, so maybe it is regulated elsewhere. But I don't know that it makes sense to have it only as 1 per lot. What if you want to have 2 or 3 signs, as long as you don't exceed the square footage?
Right.
So.
That'll be brought up next meeting.
Yeah, well, we'll have to decide on how much square footage you want.
Well, it already says that, and if you go up above it,
Yeah,
1107.1, area and height, it already talks about that. Maximum area and height of freestanding signs, 24 square feet and 8 feet respectively. Maximum area of wall signs, 24 square feet. So it already,
24 square feet.
you could get rid of, you could get rid of the number of freestanding signs per lot. It also talks about maximum number of wall signs, one per principal building. That's a little different. I think the intent there is not to have a building become a billboard.
Sort of like Arcus Brothers.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I don't see a whole lot wrong with his building, but it does look different when you drive by.
Okay. The next one is 1110.3A. These pertain to message boards or message displays. There's no logic to this requirement. With today's technology, some signs are changed over a much longer period of time. The 1 second limit needs to be deleted. And that provision of the ordinance as it drafted deals with hold times for message display signs. It says any portion of the message shall have a minimum duration hold time of 5 seconds and shall be a static display. Messages shall completely change to the next message within 1 second. So
I don't see a whole lot wrong with that.
it's really a visual kind of thing. I think these signs, if they're not done the right way, can be disruptive or visually disturbing to traffic and stuff like that. So.
There are a lot of signs now in town where it changes from one side of the sign to the other, but it occurs over a period of time. It's not all at one side at a time.
It's a fade in and fade
Right.
out.
Okay, I haven't seen them, but I'm just thinking, you get down the road and it says welcome, and boom, next one is a second later and something else advertised.
Well, there's people who have problems with quick changes like that, flash photography and so on and so forth. In fact, some TV networks tell you there may be flash present because of people with, what do I want to say?
Seizure disorder.
Yeah.
Well, it's designed, the 5 seconds I think is designed to prevent going from one message to another in a short period of time to prevent the flash.
Flashing.
Because that's distracting the drivers and stuff.
Yeah, I can handle it, yeah.
So.
Plus gives you a chance to read it before you, so you're not standing there staring at it, but you.
Is there a problem the message shall completely change to the next message within 1 second?
Well,
You're saying it's a fading one?
I'm just reading the comment. It just says there's no logic to this requirement. With today's technology, some signs are changed over a much longer period of time. The 1 second limit needs to be deleted. If you delete it, I don't know what you put in there, so.
$5 seconds do it? Do we need that at all?
Again, I guess the question, to a question of how much are we gonna chase here?
Do you need it at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you do need to
Time
have,
period, the time period.
I think you need to have something in there. Firstly, I know what it's intended to do, and I don't really see a problem with it, but that's your call.
Could you put in there fade in, fade out?
Except fade-ins are exempt, or,
No, to have that rather than the second, 2 seconds, whatever. Because you do a slideshow on your computer, you can change that to however you want it to come in.
I think the intent is they want the messages to change quickly, not fade in or out.
But they don't want it to fade too quickly.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't think it
Or
really
they don't want
matters.
it to change too quickly.
If there's a problem with the sign, the person that owns the sign is gonna be ultimately responsible if somebody has some kind of an issue with it. And the township shouldn't really get involved in it. Just say it's allowed or it isn't allowed, that type of thing.
I think PennDOT would step in there.
PennDOT has some regulations
Yeah, they have
dealing with
regulations.
those kind of signs in state rights of way or state highways. I'm
at a loss on that.
I don't know, I would just as soon leave it alone, to be honest with you, 'cause I don't think it's an issue, but I don't see it becoming an issue.
Let it go, I think we're chasing too much.
Okay, the next one is 1110.3E, luminance. And it talks about, the brightness of the signs. and things
Which
like
one? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
that. E.
E, but there's,
1110.3E, luminescence, I guess. It talks about IES guidelines and things like that. I don't
well,
believe
the first one I think's all right. It shouldn't be glared or impair somebody's vision.
That's not the perception.
Again, that should be what the state handle that.
Right. I wouldn't get involved in that.
Maximum
the state's not
brightness.
always gonna handle it because not all the roads you have are gonna be state-controlled roads.
I don't see a problem with the brightness, 3 candle power above the ambient.
3/10 of a candle, Tom, when you turn on a light bulb, you've got more than that. As long as it's not directed at somebody or somebody else's property, what difference does it make?
But again, I think isn't this meant to regulate signs along the road that you may have drivers that are potentially, the light is too bright and causes it, especially at nighttime, not to be able to see either what's coming down the road or what's crossing the road or whatever. So it's really a safety issue that they're looking at there, not whether this is directed at somebody's property or what. It's whether when I'm down and going down the road, is that sign too bright that I can't see what I need to be doing?
That or the neighbor, living next to my store says, well, that sign's way too bright. That, I'm sure that's also included in there too.
It's probably what it's intended to be.
Yeah. It's too bright for the neighbors, keeping them up at night.
Yeah, nobody wants a motel sign flashing in
Yeah.
the window.
That's what I was thinking.
Can we let that alone?
I don't know how you would regulate
I
it.
think you can let it alone. His comment here was drivers, and I think that was exactly what your comment was.
Right.
So, I think you can leave it alone.
What's the next one?
1202.5. I think I'll take a look at that. 1202. Revocation, here's the revocation of permits. He says, the actions authorized by this section are contrary to what I said during the February meeting. I personally feel that this authority is appropriate, but we cannot have a zoning officer do something illegal if I'm right.
Wait a minute, okay. Revoke it, yeah. What do you want to change it?
I think it may be addressed to me to be upon violation of any condition lawfully imposed upon a special exception, variance, or conditional use. My concern is this: I'm not sure whether you can revoke a previously granted approval if the person violates a term or condition of the approval. I think what you can do under the ordinance is probably cite them, but I'm not sure that you can revoke their originally granted permit. So, I've never seen that happen.
If you did, who would it be appealed to?
You probably have to take, if that's a decision in the zoning officer, that's got to go to the zoning hearing board if he revokes their permit.
So, what do we need to change on that?
Tom, if you read the whole thing, it says, if you make a false statement or misrepresentation on the application, it can be revoked. And
Any
it matches,
false statement or misrepresentation of a fact in the application
right,
or on the plans
correct.
on which the permit or approval is based, the Pennsylvania Crime Code provides penalties.
For false swearing.
Yeah, for false information to a municipal employee.
And it says, B is under, if you put condition, if city zoning board put certain conditions on an approval, and I don't comply with them, Larry has the right to revoke my permit according to this.
And then it'll be,
Matt says you can't do that. This says you can.
I've not seen it done, but I would have concerns about whether you can do that or not, because I think what the MPC provides for, and the ordinance manual provides for, is if you violate a condition of your approval, all he can do is cite you for that. I don't think you can go back and revoke your special exception approval, or something like that. Think of it this way: what if somebody's granted a special exception approval to operate a business between the hours of 8 and 5, and for one day, he is operating the business at 5:05 p.m. and Larry cites him. Should he lose he or she lose their entire approval to run that business for a 5-minute violation?
Of course not.
Yeah, but that's how, it could be interpreted. So,
Well, those approvals are given by the zoning hearing,
Those
not me.
right, they're given by the zoning hearing board, but if there's a violation of those terms and conditions of approvals, I think it comes back to you to enforce them. And I think all you can do is cite them in that instance under the ordinance for violating the term of their approval. I don't think you can nullify their previously granted approval.
Yeah, I can't nullify a hearing board's approval.
Right. And I don't think it can nullify what had been previously done, because once it's granted, it's granted. If they're violating the conditions of their approval, you cite them.
I was hearing two different topics, though. There was one topic, the topic you're just talking about. The other topic they were talking about is if on my application, I put in their false information,
Well, that's.
then my permit
That's a
can be
different
revoked.
story.
I know, well, that's what I'm hearing, two different topics, so.
Because
Two
if I
different
issue
sections.
a permit on false information,
Right, then you can revoke.
I have to revoke it.
Right, okay.
But see, that's probably before they've,
That's before it's what, 10 hearing or anything.
yeah, that's before you're going to a hearing or before you've probably done any work. This, section B, is upon condition of a special exception, variance, or approval. That means the business or whatever's probably already in operation. And I don't know that you can go back and the zoning officer can revoke what the zoning hearing board has done.
What I'm hearing, you keep saying, I think. What does the law allow?
I've never, ever seen somebody be able to get their special exception, variance, or conditional use approval revoked if they violate one of the terms and conditions of it. All I've ever seen happen, and I think all the MPC provides for, is that they get cited for a monetary fine that the ordinance is allowed, and the MPC allows. I've never seen it being able that you can go back and pull back what the original condition of their approval was, or shut their business down.
That'd be like revoking somebody who's grandfather 30 years ago or 50 years ago.
No, it
Come back and say you can't do that anymore,
Well, it's similar but not identical. This is somebody that goes in and gets a special exception or approval by the zoning hearing board, and then they do something to violate the term or condition of approval. All I think that the zoning officer has the authority to do is cite him for violating the ordinance. The zoning officer doesn't have the authority to, he himself, revoke the special exception because he's not the one issuing it. I think you're getting into some constitutional issues here, of taking people's rights away improperly.
Can we put in there that the zoning officer can cite them?
You don't even have to do that. I think you take section B out of there altogether, because the zoning officer under
Take
separate.
B out totally?
Take B out altogether, because I think under other provisions under this ordinance, there's an enforcement provision where the zoning officer, where it says, if there's any violations of this zoning ordinance, the zoning officer can do the following, and that's where he has the enforcement authority to do it. I just don't believe that is appropriate to be able to do that.
All right, do we have any other?
What are the consequences for me if you cite me for violating the conditions of the,
Up to $500 a day per day of violation if the magistrate finds you in violation. That's my.
so it goes to the magistrate?
You gotta go to the magistrate.
So if somebody lies on their application and lies to the zoning hearing board, the zoning officer can't do anything about that, is what you're saying? Other than to just continue to cite them?
That's a
That's a
different,
different issue.
that's a different issue.
You're talking about, weren't you just talking about lying on the application though?
That's a different section we're talking about. I'm talking about if they violate a
The
condition
conditions of it.
what the approval is. That's what the zoning officer should be doing, is going out and citing the person for violating
Okay,
that
so this,
condition.
the section that's been taken out is just in regards to the conditions of the special exceptions or,
Special exception, variance, or conditional use.
Okay.
Yeah.
so the lying on the application is a different section of the
That's a whole
ordinance?
totally different section. That's not gonna be, I don't think, I think you leave that alone.
Okay, and that's in our ordinance right now, that he can do something about that if somebody
I don't know if
lies?
it's in the current
It's in
ordinance.
this one.
the
It's in this one, is
proposed
what I'm saying
ordinance.
though, okay. You don't happen to know the section number though, do you?
In this one?
Yeah. Is it the one, like, is it right
It's
before that?
1202.5A,
Okay.
in the draft ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we should take B out of there, because I just don't see that being something that the zoning officer can do. I think he can cite them, but I don't think he can, that they can be taken away.
Have you done that before, Larry, anywhere?
I've never ran into that. Normally, when you get a special exception or variance or whatever, you have 30 days to appeal to the county court, and then after that, there's no appeals, it's law. It's,
You've got a vested right in that permit, and that's why he can't go and revoke that permit at that point in time. And if he does, then that's a violation of the person's vested rights in that permit. If they violate the approval, then all he can do is cite them under the ordinance for violating whatever conditions that they were granted to operate the business under, or do whatever that they were granted approval
and
to
if
do.
they all come into compliance with their conditions, you just keep citing them. I mean, that's all you can do.
That's all you can do. You can't take away the original approved use. I've never seen that happen. All right. That was an hour on one set of comments. That was Mr. Bodman's. Those were all the ones that Carson had labeled discuss. The other ones, he had said either okay as is, or will change, things like that. But I only addressed the discussion items. I didn't get into any of these questions on the zoning map, concerns that you had, because I don't have the zoning map here, Carson has that. We're gonna have to look at the zoning map separately.
You want one, I've got it.
I don't have the map that Carson had where he drew various things on it, so we're not gonna have time to go through.
I mean, I'm really here
Here's
for clarification on
28.
the change of the manufacturing industrial zone, because that's where I live. So, I mean, I know I was here at the Monday meeting and you said that we were going to kind of touch base on that tonight. Is there any?
Okay.
I don't have the map here, so we didn't expect, when we were here Monday, we didn't
We
expect.
know where it's at, though.
What's your,
You know,
Well, I mean, I guess I have quite a few questions. We moved in about a year and a half ago.
Where do you live?
346 Main Mifflin, which is like right across, it's like 2 houses up from the Ag Center. So, you know.
You're next to Bill Connor.
I'm right next to Bill Connor.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm here and I'm hearing these conversations about, oh, well, we moved to the country and we don't want this and this and this. Same. So I think we're struggling a little bit with the changes and trying to understand.
it'll probably never happen. It's just a spot we had to put something, and it butts up against the Mifflinville
Do
one.
you have the big map here?
But
Jerry has a big map, he said.
when you say it'll probably never happen that way, it will be zoned that way or anything?
No, it'll be
It's
zoned.
zone.
It will will be zoned, but that's.
But there's industrial parks all over the county. It's
I
like-
mean, I have the maps, and also the Mifflinville one isn't butted up right against it, unless I had false, information from.
Well, I already seen, looked it up. It's
Yeah,
our
that's
township
right.
line.
I mean, I have the map, and I don't think it could be wrong, but this is the map. So my home is right there.
Yep.
And I mean, I guess, like other things, like in the ordinance I'm reading, explosives, fireworks 50 yards from your property, possible shooting range 200 yards from, or 200 feet from your property. I mean, a bullet travels a lot further than 200 feet.
Yeah, that's on that.
They have to be contained to their property.
Yeah.
Well, I understand, but I
Yeah.
mean, if it was
They're
going in near
violation.
someone else's house, they might have the same questions. There's this, right?
So there's a tiny spot.
There is, I mean,
Between
it's-
us there, see them?
It's not bordering.
And that's probably going back to,
The state aid lands?
no, that was where Clemens used to have the junkyard, which would have been industrial anyway. Commercial.
Which ain't your head is shooting,
Yeah.
back in that area.
Yeah, there's just a real tiny spot that goes back to where, one of the Claremont kids put a house back there now. But otherwise, it butts up against that property.
Yeah, okay.
It does.
And another thing that would save you some is, you have that little stream right there behind you.
Yeah,
There's gotta be so many DEP regulations. The state mandates, we have to have a industrial zone.
so why doesn't so I'm just trying to understand, so why doesn't Beaver have an industrial zone?
They do.
Every township should be required to have one.
Don't they?
No, I have the map for that as
Their
well.
codes are not.
Their codes aren't up to date
I
yet.
don't know how current your zoning ordinance is, but you have a requirement to provide for every use. So you have to create a map that's not exclusionary, and an ordinance that's not exclusionary, and that's probably why that was an industrial zone there, because that's probably about one of the few industrial properties you have, or closest to industrial
Well,
properties.
it's on a
that you
state
have.
highway.
It's the
Our
closest
roads aren't
to
wide
the
enough for tractor trailers usually to.
I mean, you can
Comfortably
understand my
passed.
concern a little bit though, like, that house went on the market, my husband and I made an offer, and we got it the same day. So when we bought it, we thought, oh my gosh, if we ever wanna leave here, it's gonna go like wildfire. Well, now I'm worried about this zoning change. I mean, I don't know why you're laughing at me, but I mean,
I don't think you'll see any big time business.
yes, but, okay.
They got
Thank you.
a industrial park in Light Street that they can't even fill up right now. They got one,
That's alongside the interstate.
Yeah. and there's one right down on Route 11 where Waltz's is, that has some empty buildings.
Is your concern with having an industrial district at all, or where it's proposed to be located?
I mean, I guess, where it's proposed to be located, just because it would affect me if something did go in there.
But it has to go in a location where it makes sense to have an industrial zone, which is probably why it was picked where the ag business is, given its proximity to the 239 there and Route
And
80.
I do understand that, I guess, until about a week ago, we didn't know about this. So I guess that's where the questions are
You see,
coming
you can
from.
still build a home on that, it's gonna be.
I know, it's just if something did go in behind us, what is the value of what does that do to the value of my property? If there's a power plant behind me, or
Maybe
an
raise
amusement park, what's that?
May raise your value,
Well,
they
I
may
guess
buy
if
you
there's someone
out.
there that, or not, and then I have a house sitting there that nobody wants to live in.
Does the code, does the law require the industrial area to be of a particular dimension? Can the width of that be reduced to address this concern?
It
In
has,
terms of the Beaver Township Code, that was 2007 also.
Yeah,
No,
but there's not that much there that I think is actually doable, like you said, because of that little stream. I think there's a lot, because that goes
Well,
right up through where Jay's
And on
was.
Bill Connors, it's part of it, there's also a pond, so I
Right,
think
right,
that's also
I
an
don't
issue.
think any road frontage stuff that would even,
Okay,
just going for something.
okay.
Matt, are we gonna look at that whole zoning thing at some other point, the zoning map, my concerns or suggestions or whatever, because it may all relate to.
I haven't seen what your concerns are, Cindy. Larry or somebody mentioned you had said something, but I didn't see it.
Yes, got back to the
Okay, so that's what it was, Carson, yeah, Carson never got
Well, I
back.
guess we're not gonna address it today.
Right now, he's, shoveling.
We could move this and put in like a Brookside Road, that would get, these couple of homes out of it, but still keep it,
Well, there's nobody else here, I don't know my neighbors, nobody else lives in that area, correct?
They were here Monday night, but found out.
Okay,
it's
if we just go to Brookside Road,
yeah, well, she's right in here. There's a couple homes right here, but if we line this up with Brookside Road, we can still keep the fertilizer plant here. I mean, we
I think
reduce our zone a
there's
little
about
bit.
6 houses.
Yeah, yes,
yeah,
not to take these houses out of it.
But you're still gonna have the Kramer house in the back.
I think it's part of the big conversation as far as zones and.
The Klingerman house in the back that he just purchased, he's
No.
not part, okay.
no,
One to
one,
the side, gotcha.
yeah, was it Turkey Road? Was it
Yeah.
Turkey Lane or
All the
something?
way back.
Where's Lantar's property?
Well, that won't be affected either.
It goes up over an angle.
See, I would just cut
How
this
far
right
off,
down.
it's not that far off
It
from the
goes up at
side.
an angle, I know, but if you go up there and put gas on, I can see straight down the plant.
Bobby, didn't you say that you were trying to keep the districts as property lines, not otherwise?
Well, see
not
that, we
divided?
went off of that road, so it's very easy to determine what was going on.
Right.
You know, and like you said, being those houses are there, other than that, or they pull something like, they just did what happened, come in with a big suitcase full of money to buy you out.
Well, it would take a lot of money, I really like my house, and put a lot of work into
Did you
it.
see what they paid for a
No,
house?
but it would have to, it would
Yeah.
have to be about
My
that.
place, I love my place, but money talks.
Yeah, mine's for sale.
Well, while we're on the map, the reason I'm here today too is, according to your map, I'm agricultural and now I'm being changed to rural residential.
Where are
And,
you? Where are you?
202 West Hill.
He's Cheroklee's old place.
Livestock development.
So there's hardly any difference.
It's a white barn in the lake house.
Which, I guess, like, why did we do that? Like, what was the benefit of doing that? To change, or pretty arbitrarily, we took areas that already had houses on them, like the development, and Rod happens to be across from that.
Yeah, I'm the original farm.
And
Original
changed it to rural residential, and to, why did we do that?
Because it would make more sense for it to be zoned rural residential as opposed to agricultural, because it seems, some of those have probably changed where subdivisions and developments have occurred, where you're not gonna have agricultural operations anymore, so they don't properly belong in an ag zone anymore.
Well, my property is still being farmed.
Well, I don't know about your specific property, I'm talking about Cindy's property, I'm familiar
Where's
with
your
yours.
property at?
So this is some.
But the one that was zoned,
Down, come down.
for the most part, what was zoned rural residential is already fully developed, and it, I don't,
Well, the same question applies to the area just north
Where am I?
of East Hillcrest, the church.
Look
There
out.
are 3, 4, 5 over here. That'll just be
He's right here
right
in
here.
your corner.
Because they put it back there, they put it
Yeah,
down.
we changed that because
but I don't
there's
know
lots
why
down there
you
that we
would,
just,
like,
we just had to find more lots.
Well, he's the
Why
other
did you
guy,
have
right?
that? It's not gonna, if,
I'm the original
most of the
house
areas
and
are areas that
farm
aren't gonna be
this all
developed
came from.
anymore, at least some of those
But-
were, the whole thing is used up, like down there.
And the guy down the road from us is
Yeah.
still listed as agricultural.
And the next door neighbor is agricultural.
But it's not, that's not where we put it, we
So
put it
that's
where it was
another-
already developed, where the house was already there, and
You
then
know,
we
see
put
why
it
you
in
can't
rural
run down my
residential.
right away, they stop right there. And leave me agricultural.
But if you're how many acres
It
is
is
there?
full, so why, I mean,
See, I'm not sure that would, he couldn't even,
No, but that'd be one that we could tweak a little bit too.
But, so here's my concern. Does it make any difference? Is it gonna affect my taxes?
No, what's gonna happen is the, what Jerry had brought up from years ago when we were doing up at Delmers is agricultural is more open to different things to be left go around your house than what
Right.
it is with R.
if you're in rural residential, we want you to mow your grass and keep it down.
Junk cars.
Junk cars.
My field gets cut twice a year.
Yeah.
And it's baled.
Yeah,
Nobody's ever.
Right, but, okay, so.
Nobody on this board,
Right.
but what about 10 years from now when
So,
maybe
so
you
my
guys are
second
over
concern
here?
is, okay, we go ahead and make it rural residential. Now, any new restrictions that come along, shouldn't I be grandfathered in because I was agricultural when I purchased that home?
No,
Anything you would have there, you would. be
everything currently have, you would be
non-conforming
grandfathered in, but you're not grandfathered, you can't, you're just, the zoning, you're limited in the future based upon the way the zone would change if you want to do new things. You'd have to comply with the zoning ordinance in effect then. Anything that you have now, stays, whatever you
You
should.
don't have to stop doing anything you're doing.
Yeah.
That's grandfathered in, that's what if the ordinance would prohibit that now, if it was adopted, if it would be illegal in that zone now, but it was legal when you were doing it, that's what's considered a
I'll throw
non-conforming
this
use.
out there, just burning brush.
That's not regulated by the zoning ordinance, that's a different type of ordinance.
It's an ordinance.
Okay.
Afraid not to put that on here.
But,
So,
It won't change any of your tax status.
so, it's really a wash. I've looked at all the rules, the ag and the rural residential doesn't seem to change a whole lot.
No, there isn't much difference in it.
But just my concern was is whether or not any new restrictions are gonna be applied to my property. I can see that they might be applied to it once I sell it. If I sold my property to somebody else, they would have to abide by all those roads at
If
residential rules.
this ordinance was adopted today, whatever you're doing today and that you've done to date, as long as it was legal under the current zoning ordinance, you can continue to do. If you come in with an application to make a different use of your property,
to change my
that is
use.
not allowed in an RR zone, then that's where you would have to comply with the ordinance, get a variance or whatever.
So for instance, we have a 90-foot long barn that was originally designed to house chickens. So by my understanding, rural residential limits me to 50 chickens. Agricultural does not limit me to 50 chickens.
I don't have all this.
Okay, so I'm just using this as an example, so not necessarily, I'm not holding you to specifics. But if, for instance, in the future, I'm zoned rural residential because I currently don't house more than 50 chickens, I would not be allowed to ever house more than 50 chickens.
No, without probably getting the board approval.
You have to get a variance.
You'd have to
Right,
variance.
right, so that's the kind of impact.
So when I retire, I might wanna raise chickens, I might wanna have 10 cows.
So you
And the
can have,
reason for that in an RR zone is this. Usually, they're typically smaller lots where you're closer to neighbors. It doesn't make sense to allow the types of uses and intensity for an agricultural operation.
When I purchased that place, there was no neighbors. I was the only person
There
there.
are now.
Once again, I think you go back to the animals, you go back to the,
So I think we better go with leaving me at ag and.
the crap. Again, you have to have a certain amount of.
yeah, if you wouldn't be able to have that many chickens there anyway, because
What was
your property, your manure
What was
management
your
would
name?
cut your area off.
Ron Bardo?
Rod, R-O-D, B-A-R-D-O.
Okay, what was your address?
202 West Hillcrest.
How many acres do you have there?
And you want to stay in ag, right?
4 1/4.
So you want to see it doesn't even classify as a farm,
She
technically.
could export it, she could export it.
Basically,
Right.
the property I have was a
Yeah,
large
it's
tract
like a
of
sell it
property.
like a
That's
ton
not-
of
Subdivided.
And that's the exact reason why they.
There was
come
a
out
rule,
with
you can
RRs.
export
Just
It's
bring
not-
But I have the original piece.
And just leave this, because
You got what's left, how big was the farm before it was all split up?
It was 88.
Yeah, that's why it made sense. to me.
Oh,
Now it has 4 acres,
That's not big.
that's why
Right.
it doesn't necessarily make sense.
On the new
You have to
map,
do those
is
kind of
Smith
things.
agriculture or is that?
Yeah, like-
Still agricultural.
Animals and stuff.
Yeah, so then see, he would
That's
have ag all the way around.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we just have to make a minor change.
I understand, I
That one change is because we
understand.
have those 5 lots, those two rows subdivision already there now.
He's saying, if we make that minor change and he'd be all ag, he's right against it.
He's right against it anyway.
If it's not creating a spot zone, you know,
No,
that's,
it's not.
that's
No, it's
fine.
not spot zoning.
Define spot zoning if you would, please.
Spot zoning is if we have this ag district and then right in the middle, we stick a lot.
And call it residential.
In other words, you have a piece of ag and then residential all the way around it.
But no, that's not spot, that's if they put it in,
Yeah, I didn't add it in.
if we add it in. If it's already there,
Right.
that can't be classified as farm.
No, it's not spot zoning then.
If we're gonna change Zyslop to rural residential, why is the area north of East Hillcrest at Church not rural residential? There are 3 new houses along the road and what, 2 or 3 that set further back towards the bluff.
Yeah, but they still farm in between them, don't
No.
they? No?
Nope.
Where are you talking?
The gray
Old
one.
Church Road,
Yep.
just look to the right.
Yeah, from Scotty Wilshire's out, Tom.
Yeah, from Scotty.
Oh, okay, okay.
There's
I know
three
you-
gray
yeah.
houses.
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's farming behind it, there's horse farms or horsing behind it.
Well, you can have horses in rural residential.
You can have cows in rural residential too, but that's not the
So
point.
that rural residential is all homes through there anyway. Where do you mean?
From church going out.
Right, there's along Hillcrest.
Yeah, on the
This
river,
area.
on the riverside.
That's rural residential, and then along Hillcrest.
It's all homes.
Yeah, but they're saying where those three new gray houses is on the left.
Well,
he's
there's
saying
homes
it's
there,
not,
but
it's
there's a
ag.
lot of property behind this stuff.
Just open space.
Well, yeah. It's not all residential though.
This is.
Yeah, but it's only a couple of lots that go out there.
The spot, what, 2 or 3 along the road and
Yeah,
2 or 3,
behind.
maybe about 3 behind,
Yeah.
right to the bluff.
So you wouldn't want to go out to here? I mean, we should always stay on straight lines. Sure.
See, yeah, as long as there's something there to go off of, you know what I'm saying, without saying, okay, now.
Well, place somebody's property in half.
Right, survey it, you know, if there's something there to go off of, I don't have a problem with changing a little bit, but if.
And you
there's
wanna
nothing
change it
there-
to rural residential?
Well, as long as there's lines there, I think Larry would make it easier for you.
It
you
would
know.
make it easier for me.
Yeah, all right, to guess where things are and
I mean,
surveys.
that's why we wanted to get rid of these 500-foot setbacks and that, because they were too hard to determine.
So you wanna turn the rural residential back to ag, those 500-foot setback stuff, right?
Well,
No, he wants to go the other way.
No, he wants it to go from ag to rural
Yeah,
residential.
where those houses
Where
are.
those houses are.
There,
right there.
but I'm talking down here where you were pointing, right? Did we want on,
Well,
Mountain Pink?
we couldn't there because of, we have no straight lines there, that's the problem.
Okay, because it was a road, both sides, right?
There's nothing to go off of, that's what he's trying to eliminate.
Yeah, there's nothing at all
Right.
there.
Or
Guess-
if somebody's gonna come for a permit, you're gonna make them survey everything and bid it out and.
Which that's what I don't want to do.
Right.
Otherwise, I have to go out there with a wheel and try to
Yeah.
determine.
Yes.
You want the
Yes.
lines to run along existing property lines, you don't want property splits
Or,
out.
or the roads, where I know where.
Yeah, where you know the lines are gonna be.
Right.
I mean, that's only sense, but. But I think when they started that, they talked about because they wanted them to maintain the houses, where in the ag area, they don't have quite the maintenance problem stuff. Aren't they different? Isn't it rural residential and
Well, rural
village center?
residential has a couple more.
Yeah,
They have the additional requirements of property
Yeah.
maintenance that we put in that ordinance.
that I think was when that 500-foot stuff started, so we can keep it there.
But I think we could easily tweak those changes, you know.
So that's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for, yeah,
Yeah.
to get this thing.
So at what point do we how do you make the decision as to what becomes rural residential and what doesn't? Take the houses along Main Milton where Randy Fisher lived. Looking what, 3 houses, 3
Yep.
or 4 houses in there.
Great,
You know, is that technically, it's certainly not agricultural anymore.
no.
I mean, we tried to look at where we already have houses clumped and where we feel there's gonna be development that we won't be able to stop anyway. Especially out at West Hillcrest, right? We just had another subdivision out there, 5 more lots.
That's
And
right.
that's why we included them in there.
As rural residential.
Yeah, because
Yes.
we know it's gonna build homes on them. you know.
That's right.
See, I don't know if it's called spot zoning or not, but if you buy a piece of property in an agricultural area just to build a house, to live there, I think it ought to go to being residential regulations,
So do I.
you know?
That's why I put-
I don't know if that's legal, Jerry.
That's why I pushed for updating our zoning ordinance for the last 4 or 5 years.
And we're finally doing it, and we're never gonna make everybody happy on it.
But I mean, all I,
Up there at Doxel Farm is where those houses are you're talking about.
Yeah,
We're gonna-
yeah.
The problem is where do you sit and say, okay, here's the line?
Or out along Brookside, is where Brookside was in joint west to East Hillcrest. There's a whole row of houses out along there. Is that
But
not rural residential?
But what doesn't happen, what can't happen is say somebody buys an 80-acre farm and they decide to put a house there. Just because they purchased it doesn't automatically convert it over to RR. Periodically, as development things change, that's when you gotta go and update your maps and your zoning ordinances, which is what we're trying to do here.
Correct.
So,
I mean, the feedback that I've gotten in here was we want to keep as much agricultural land as we can. And I think we did a good job here. If you look at this map, we have a lot of agricultural land.
But there's a lot of houses in ag land.
We do have a lot of houses, but how are you gonna stop building? You're never gonna stop building.
But you can control
You can try to
where
control
it is. I mean, I don't think folks understand that basically we've offered up every acre of agricultural land for development, whether it's high density or single-family dwellings or multiple families, it's all.
So then it goes back to the question, do we want to put limits on what people can do with their property? If he has a 100-acre farm and he wants to retire and sell that farm to a developer, should we limit his options to do that?
I think there needs to be a discussion though about zoning certain areas and making it those easier for development in those areas. Call it whatever zone you want to call it. And I think that those areas should be at least near a road that can handle the traffic, because we saw what happened when the road was closed out here and all that traffic routed on the back roads in this township. Well, the way it is now, that land is going to be developed and the traffic is going to be on those roads continuously. And I'm not sure the township wants to have to take care of that. We have a few main roads that go through the township. Why don't we utilize those as the main thoroughfare for?
So some of those roads that go through the township that you're talking about are in flood zone and you can't put
They're
houses
not
there.
all.
Beaver,
No, not all of them, but yeah.
but Beaver Township has what Cindy's referring to. It's called the collector roads, where they have things, these major things where they have to feed onto, they call them collector roads.
They have
And Carson
aspects.
Helfrich wrote that ordinance also.
So in their districts like this, so for ag district, say agritourism or bus shelters, they have an asterisk. And those asterisks then come down and they say that if you want to do that as a principal permitted use in this district, it has to butt up to a main road. It can't come out, so you're not getting a larger commercial operation on one of the tinier back roads.
Well, but we don't have that. The only place that you can build industrial or commercial really is out here in this little spot we designate.
Which is gonna go to a main road.
Yeah.
But some of these things, these principal permitted uses that are in the ag district could potentially be larger operations
Yeah, well,
that are coming out on the
how
smaller
do you do
roads.
that with a farmer? You're gonna tell guys they can't build more
You're gonna
chickens?
tell the farmer that he
They
can't
can
sell his
still
house?
develop, but there's ways around that too. There's ways that you can say there's a certain amount of that agricultural land, whether you have 100 acres, let's say, and you want to develop it, fine, you can develop it, but there are limits to how much of it you can develop.
Well, that's what we tried to do with that cadets.
No,
We have that.
didn't, Larry. All we did was stuff it together. It's the same amount of houses, it's just stuffed
I just
together so
disagree
there's
with you
land
on that.
around it.
I disagree.
Well, there's more open space if you stuff it together, and they gotta supply the sewer and the water for
But
it.
it's the same amount of houses, it's just on a less amount of land.
Well, yeah, it is.
So, I mean, it's still gonna be the same amount of traffic feeding onto those roads, the same amount of everything, and then the farmers are out there and they're supposed to be able to work around that
So,
on these
but-
back roads.
I believe if you said, let's just take this big piece of agricultural land there, that zone, and you said, we're not gonna allow no houses being built on
I
this.
didn't say
I
that.
think we would be in court quicker than you could even.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that, but I don't think you're gonna be in court if you put limits on it, because I've seen in other townships where they've done that, and they're obviously doing it without being drug into court.
but what kind of limits are you talking about?
What I just said, number one, they zone zones for easier development for multifamily and high density and yada yada. They chose zones for that, okay? So that's where the development would be encouraged to go. And then on the ag land, they said, okay, yeah, develop it, but you can only develop X amount. You have to have some, there's different, you can set whatever the numbers you want, but for based on the size of the lot or the size of the property, the acreage, there's like, per acre, how many then acres have to be, how many acres can be allowed in a non-agricultural?
Cindy, what you're referring to what we have here at the present time, if I read it correctly. When we had rural residential areas identified along Main Mifflin Road, along Mountain Peak Road and so on, we've eliminated those. We're basically, as I read this, we were trying to encourage, because there are already houses in this area, so let's encourage, let's let that become our primary area for further development.
What is it, 330?
That's 339, yes.
Well, I guess, yeah, if you take that theory and just expand it out and have more of that land available as rural, or whatever you want to call it, rural residential, some people call it, some townships call it rural suburban, but it is where all that high density multifamily is kind of encouraged to go.
Well, see, we've eliminated all that on the current map.
It would eliminate all.
So we have more agricultural area.
Yeah, we call it agricultural, but still, it's already built up. And in here, we were saying, okay, we already have houses, like, let's take Brandon Fisher as an example. This is an area we would like to see, if we're gonna put in rural residential, we'd like to see it concentrated along that area because it's already rural residential. What we've done is take that and kept it in agricultural, which it obviously is not anymore. The same thing happened.
Then we get back to the line thing again, you know, trying to determine where the lines will be, and it's just.
And some of those farms, didn't they sell the building rates off of, they'll never be able to build on it anyway.
I don't know that, I don't know. I don't know where that we did.
Rhodes's farm there,
Yeah.
they sold the building rates off of that, they could never build on them.
That's the only
That's
one.
not our problem.
That's the only
A
one.
couple of them.
No, I checked with the, I was out to,
That's what the county plans, is that correct, Tom?
that's what the county said, what they told me.
That's a state thing, isn't it?
Well, the money comes from the state, but it's
Yeah.
administered by the county.
Because in the Lancaster farmer,
Pardon?
in the Lancaster farmer, every couple months you'll see these were.
Very, very difficult to get to Columbia County, there's not enough
Yeah,
money.
there's never any.
Okay. So,
That's about the only way you can do it, is somebody to buy the land up and that's it. That's the
Yeah,
only-
yeah,
That's the only way.
But really, you know, if a big developer comes in here and he's got a pocket full of money, he's gonna do what he
he's
wants.
gonna do what he wants because it'll
It's like
back
with
up
Aberdeen, you know, you gotta have money, you're
Well,
gonna.
Lionsgate over in South Center.
If you
did the
don't
same
allow
thing.
like multifamily and apartments and all that stuff in ag, and you have a zone where they will be allowed, fine, let them come in and develop.
Cindy, in ag, those high-density uses aren't allowed. Single-family detached dwellings are there. We're not talking about multifamily townhouses or apartment complexes in there.
With,
Those kinds of, can I finish? Those kinds of uses, two-family dwellings and things like that, they're in the RR zone. Yeah, you could have subdivisions in the ag zone, and it sets minimum lot sizes, but I think it also had the cluster concept that you also talked about as well. Problem is, I don't think we're ever gonna come to an agreement that's gonna satisfy everybody's interests.
It's not gonna happen.
You know, it's gotta be a compromise at some point to an extent.
Why can you not, if a developer buys land in the ag district, require him to get rezoned to residential or rural residential before he does any development?
Because that, I don't believe would be legal, because he has a right to develop that property in conformity with the ordinances that would exist when he or she applies
What
for
if
the
you change the
permit.
ordinance? What if you change the ordinance?
I don't think that would be legal to require somebody to do that, to get it rezoned as a condition of being able to do something, never seen that done.
Well, when do you rezone it?
You rezone it typically when land use patterns change over time, like we've experienced here.
Or you're not gonna set aside a, for instance, right now, there's no place in this township to develop residential. There's no place set aside for residential development. It's 90% full.
Isn't Village Center set aside for that?
Pardon?
Village Center?
No, he's saying there's no separate.
There's no land that's not
Separate
developed
district.
already that can be developed in a for residential housing.
There's no rural residential already established that's vacant.
Well,
But
that's-
basically
that's
what they're
correct.
saying is that any agricultural, your property up there could be developed for residential properties because there is no limitation on that. And that's where Cindy's issue comes in.
Yes.
The only way you could really control that is make it more strict for your zoning board. When you have a zoning board hearing to rezone it, not rezone it, but to have the exception to build a home in ag.
I think we want to get rid of that. I don't think
I
it
wanna
makes,
get rid of
I don't
that,
think it
but-
makes sense to have somebody go for a special exception approval if they want to build a house in an ag zone. This is one of probably the only ordinance where I've ever seen a provision.
So
like
I
that.
have a person that builds in rural residential, and then 500 feet in is agricultural, because that happened to you, and they have to pay $800 fee to
Yeah.
meet the same requirements. To me, that's just not fair to people. But
I will say this though, I know you guys are trying to zero in on the concept of splitting properties and knowing where property lines are. You can't just kind of go by where you think property lines are, because there's been
Exactly.
4 instances where it led to huge problems. And that's all, it's still gonna be an issue.
we have him up there on White Knight, right? When he came in for that addition, he gave us property lines. When he went to have a survey, guess what? He was already on somebody else's property.
My
So you have to know where
place is
they're
the
at.
same thing, when we surveyed ours, I owned to the side of Slim Michael's porch. You know,
The survey techniques changed over a long period
Well,
of
they
time.
got a lot better.
lot of guessing and.
Right.
A lot of oak trees and big stones.
I was gonna say, we own a piece of property in another municipality that our property line is the ravine. So right now, this is the ravine. 10 years from now, the ravine might go like this.
Since our
I
property
know one up
is
the
to the
center of a
ravine.
creek, the center of a stream, and the stream's been moving the last 40 years.
I keep being a little Tom.
Well, I know.
I think that's maybe a reason to look at some type of a system where you've got a tremendous amount of growth that's just strictly between the landowner and the zoning officer. And a lot of times it's like the neighbor, like Bobby just said, he knows his neighbor's porch. Is his neighbor gonna fess up to that if it was between him and Larry? You know, to have some system of checks and balances where the neighbors,
Well, the only way you figure that out is if the guy surveys his property, that's right.
but you're not requiring surveys.
No, no.
So that's an issue there too, because that's been a major problem.
Well,
At least
that's
four
some, goes back to what we're trying to do with getting rid of some of this
Now,
between ag and.
let me ask
trying to
Larry.
change lines.
What would be the alternative to not having a zoning board hearing in ag? What would be the alternative to that? You see, a person should be able to build a home on the ag district. What is
As
the
long as they
alternative?
They just do
As
it.
long as they meet the setbacks and the 2-acre lot, and to
So,
me,
The only approval required is Larry.
that's the only approval
so
required.
would it,
And it saves the person
Then
$800.
we're here and we're doing this, why don't you just get rid of it then?
Well, I want to get rid of it.
would it,
Or change it to 4 acres, or.
would it sort of
Yeah.
satisfy to some extent what Cindy's trying to accomplish? And I don't know again if it's legal or not. So our township requires 2-acre lots for development.
And so it's
Yes,
part
yes.
of
Certain areas.
I was
Some
gonna
of the
say-
5 acres.
I was gonna say, in ag, couldn't you make it bigger size lots? And then you wouldn't have that concentration of housing in those agricultural areas. It would be, somebody could maybe take their 80-acre farm and divide it into maybe 8 lots or 16 lots if you're using a 5-acre lottage, but it wouldn't be every 2 acres could become a house.
Well, then you lose agricultural property, because now nobody's gonna be able to farm it or anything.
Right.
It also brings up a different issue, is when you're doing all this, you try to keep the non-conforming lots as low as possible. So if you come in now, just say agricultural, making 3-acre lots, every home that's in those agricultural will become a non-conforming use, a legal non-conforming use, because their lots won't meet the next zoning. And that also presents special problems for those people, because now they fall under some different rules about only can extend 50% of their building, and
Well,
so.
that's my point there with my property.
And I think we could just fix that, we'll stay, that's not, but, so you gotta be careful, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this zoning that you have to take into consideration when you're, especially when you start to rezone districts.
Well, if we don't want to do anything else that we've talked about, that I've talked about, or Jerry's talked about, why can't we not then at least consider all the ag land, if it's going to be developed, that a certain amount of each lot is not, that it has to remain in agricultural use or not, or the amount cannot be all not, so the whole farm won't be bought up and developed. And Tom, you say, well, if it's a 5-acre lot, it's all going to be gone. Well, it doesn't matter. All you're doing is the number of houses are going to be different. If it's a 20-acre lot, then there'll be 10 houses on 2 acres. And if it's if somebody's going to develop it, they're going to develop every acre, unless you require them to let some of it in agricultural or
Open
non-developed.
space, and that's what the cluster subdivision was designed to accomplish that we
But
talked
it
about.
does not.
Cindy.
It does not, Matt. It does
If
not.
you want open area, then how else are you gonna force it other than to make houses go to a certain area?
I'm saying
It's gotta
how-
go into a cluster.
I'm saying how to do it. And I have the stuff from another township that does it. And it doesn't do the high density thing.
At a meeting several years ago, Lancaster County planning people were up here, they had a meeting over at the Ag Center. And one of their comments was that when they went from the 1 acre to the 2 acre minimum, they thought they were going to slow down the disappearance of agricultural land. And what they actually did was they increased, accelerated. Because now they take 2 acres at a time rather than 1 acre. If we go to 5, it's the
So
same
if
thing.
you go 5, it'll be worse, yeah. We're not gonna satisfy everybody, and that's all there is to it. I mean,
What's the possibility of we're talking rural residential here, what's the possibility of, like she said, about having main routes? You know, you have your, and I think you've tried to do that, have rural residential along the main route, like 339, Hillcrest,
Well,
so on.
think about it, if we go up to Mifflin Road where there's still farming going on, and we put that in there, are we gonna go to that farmer and say, now your grass is 4 inches high, mow it?
Well, that would depend upon him if he's willing to sell
Well,
No,
if
when you put it in that, now you gotta follow his rules.
Yeah,
it. Oh, yeah, yeah.
you know, I mean,
understand what you're saying.
you know, one way
Yeah.
goes the other way.
Yep. Can't even grow hay because he's gotta keep his grass mowed in it.
That's the whole problem.
Make it another, call it something else and don't have the same ordinances.
You know, you're trying to change something that's been established one way for a long time, and then you're trying to change the rules. And it's not that easy.
Yeah.
You can't just change the rules on people right in the middle.
Well, especially when you go from 92 ordinance to 2018 ordinance.
Right, and, you know, and I think, I don't know, it's kind of my opinion or my thought that, you know, yeah, you need to do this, but, you know, it really shouldn't really take effect until that person sells their property.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Can't do that.
You know, we're gonna be spending money on this, talking about it, and we're not gonna get anything.
Yeah, I don't know,
What
what's
we
the
need
point
to
of
do
accomplishing
is,
it?
once we get through this, it may not be perfect, but in 2 years, we gotta look at it and see if we can tweak where our mistakes are a little bit.
What's the big benefit for doing what you're doing now? What's the benefit to the township?
Jerry wanted us to do zoning for what, 5, 6 years?
To
Because,
benefit what?
you know,
Because of these older ordinances that we were putting into place here by the township, for example, weed control. Any of the houses on the Zyloff development, there are no controls on them because it's agricultural. Once it becomes rural residential, now our other ordinances apply.
Have you read any of the deed restrictions attached to every one of those
Who's
properties?
gonna enforce it?
Not all,
Who's
no, some of
enforcing
them I have.
Who enforces it?
who's enforcing?
It's just like, what are you the same thing?
Yep.
One of you had a homeowners
Each
association
neighbor-
at one
Each
time.
neighbor, all your deeds are accessible through the internet.
Yeah.
You can look at them, you can read them. Each neighbor can enforce it on each other if they really have a problem with what's going on in their property. They can look up their deed, they can look down there, see what they're not allowed to do, and do a civil thing within themselves, not within the township.
Do you think that'll happen?
No,
Most times it doesn't, people don't have the resources
Yep.
to do it.
right, but
Or they don't wanna really upset their
there's
neighbor.
deed restrictions that are that thick that go with each one of those properties, not mine, But if you're one of those other properties,
Hawkins development on the other end was the same way, but nobody's ever did anything.
but you know, if push comes to shove, if somebody decided to put a little junkyard in his property, they would have something to stand on by going to court with their deed and saying, look, he's got the same deed restrictions I do, and he has that right.
But there's
To fight
actually,
that.
for stuff like that, there's actually.
We already got something for that, yeah.
But I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff in those deed restrictions, and that's why my property doesn't have any, but.
But the other thing is, if I own a farm, which I do, and somebody comes and offers me ungodly amount of money for it,
They own
they
it.
put lots on it, they own it, and I don't think I should be told not to be able to sell it because the neighbor wants, more open space.
Right. Yeah, no, I
But
understand
it'll
that.
have, all this, everything has to be specs, setbacks, perk tests,
Right.
site distance for driveways, slope. I mean, there's a lot there to look at, I mean, where the open space is up and behind me, most of that's this way.
You couldn't put a house in the mountain anyway.
Yeah, I mean, my place is open space, it's from the store up.
Yeah. I used to have a beautiful view both directions. Used to. I used to. Now I got a property that's right on my corner and,
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna happen. I mean, because the best agricultural land is where it's gonna be most easily developed, just because.
And
That's
these
right.
properties,
Well, any land's gonna be developed because it's gonna, if somebody has it for sale, that's,
The problem that you're getting into here, the problem that you're getting into here is the classic battle of what the landowner can do with his property versus what your neighbor doesn't want him to do with his property. Where do you draw the line? You're not gonna make everybody happy. That's the problem. If you have a house and there's 30 open acres next to you, you don't want anybody developing that. Maybe the farmer wants to retire, maybe the person dies, maybe the kids don't want to continue to farm it anymore, maybe they can't.
But nobody's saying they can't sell it. They can't develop it, it's just that somebody
that's a
can't.
choice.
but you're taking the value of what they could make away from them if they can't sell as many lots.
Right.
I mean, if there's hardship down the road someplace and the kid wants to sell off to help mom and dad earn and keep them out of the nursing home or something, he's gonna need some money, and that's one way to get it. And I can't see where you could write something at all that says I can't do that,
Right. No, I agree with you.
I had a constituent come to me one time and say, look what they did to my mountain, how they cut it all those trees down. I said, did you own that over there? No, but I have to look at it. If you don't own it, they can do with it what they want.
Really, the only way you can stop a development from going in across the street from you is to be able to afford to buy that piece of property yourself and stop it.
Yep.
That's right.
But unfortunately, you all can't do that.
Gary's right, that's what they're doing down in Lancaster County, but we don't have the money here like they have down there. I mean, they're pouring millions in that.
In your point, they did that on the lot across Fifth Street Hollow between Giant and the next little shopping center.
Yep.
The neighbors stopped it. So that there is power by the other neighbors. That would have been an ideal place for elderly housing because of the proximity to all the amenities that older people require.
That site had development issues too. It had wetlands, there was water levels, there were a whole host of other problems.
I mean, Jerry, we did some work up there when Scott did, went to Lionsgate, and what did they tell them? We'll just go to court and we'll bankrupt you.
Yeah.
So they built it,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
period.
Power wins.
All right, well, it's 6 o'clock, I don't think we,
We're gonna beat it to death.
yeah, we probably have to have another meeting at some point.
Yeah,
because
we
there's
ought to have
comments.
maybe one more of these and then another big public hearing
and then
and
see where it
let's
goes.
get it done and we'll work on it.
So
for
you're
several years.
there'll be a notice in the paper?
Things
Pardon?
There'll be a notice in the paper?
Carson called me this morning, I didn't want to cancel it. He already sent us the papers, he's shoveling snow,
Yeah.
we're not.
Too bad, Chris.
I hope he has a place to shovel.
He didn't have power for 2 or 3 days.
Some people don't have it yet.